Hi, my name is Nick, and today we're going to go over some of my favorite features in Adobe Creative Cloud version of Photoshop. They are gradient filter, upright filter, the smart sharpening inside Photoshop improvements, and upscaling improvements. Last but not least is HDR. Let's dive in. First and foremost, we're going to explore this radial filter effect among other awesome features in Photoshop. You'll see the sliders that are familiar to you if you use them in CS6 version. I like to play with my contrast a little bit, bring my exposure to the proper level, and then that usually exposes the highlights just a bit too much. Bring the highlights back, control my shadows, and make sure my blacks are right where they're supposed to be. The white balance, of course, should be on the spot. Now here's where the creativity comes with the new gradient filter, and the tool is located right here next to your linear gradient filter, or graduated filter they call it there. It's called gradient filter or radial filter with the J shortcut. Now the difference between that and a regular vignette control from lens correction is basically that if you have your image cropped to, let's say, I'm going to go a little extreme like this, and you go to lens correction to adjust the vignette control, you'll see that the bottom right and left corners are not getting any creative vignette effect. That could be achieved with this new effect called gradient filter. I'm going to get rid of my crop and show you how this gradient filter works. So you open the dialog box by clicking on that, and you place it anywhere you want on the filter, on the canvas. And you'll see this green dotted line, which allows you to see where the effect ends. You could turn on and off this dialog box by clicking Show Overlay. And also you can play with all the settings that you like inside the camera raw. You can adjust your exposure, contrast, shadows, and so on. Now also this gradient filter, unlike the vignette control and the lens correction, could be used as a creative addition, and it could be used on the inside if you were to say dim some spot that has been overexposed or overflashed or something. Let's say this bouquet was slightly overexposed. We can just bring it back ever so slightly. And there's the radial gradient for you. Next, we're going to explore some of the features that I like inside Camera Raw lens correction. Now you all know that we can control our position of the picture within the frame, and we can adjust a little bit of the vertical and horizontal distortion. Of course, some of the pinching and distorting for the blobbed images. But in this new version, we have something called upright. Those are the filters that allow you to automatically correct it and then push it on with some of the manual tweaks. And here is how it works. You go to your lens correction, go to manual, and you can click on this A button or auto upright, and it'll attempt to use the algorithm that figures out what are your lines, what are your straight lines, what are your verticals and horizontals. Click on A, give it a little time, and you'll see what it does. Now there are also these boxes that look like a horizontal grid and a vertical grid, and one that looks like it's full grid. Now we're going to use this upright vertical grid, which is detecting the vertical lines, and it tries to adjust for those. It's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job. You can turn on the Show Grid checkbox here, and that allows you to see how well was the job done. It's not bad in this case, but we're going to apply a little bit more rotation to it, and perhaps crop it. Now the cropping I'm doing is 2:3 ratio, which is a regular 4:6 print or 20:30. In this case, I would like to preserve the skirt on this bride's dress, and I don't mind the buildings being chopped off on top a little bit because I'm trying to get closer on their faces anyways. Now that I'm done correcting it, I can turn off the grid, look at overall composition, and be done with it. One more tool that I would like to share with you is the Smart Sharpening tool inside Photoshop. This new version of Creative Cloud Photoshop allows you to sharpen the objects without introducing any halos, which we all hate when we sharpen things. Now in this photograph, you'll see that the baby's eyes are not quite in focus, or they're slightly blurred. I guess it could be okay, but the parent's eyes are nice and sharp in focus compared. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply the smart sharpening filter, and you might think, well, there was already a smart sharpening filter, but it's been improved. It's been much improved on the algorithms in this CC version of Photoshop. Well, I'm going to jump the layer by hitting Ctrl J, Command J on the Mac, and apply the smart sharpening filter. Under the sharpen menu, under filter, we're going to choose smart sharpen, and you'll notice that this dialog box is actually fairly new. It has a new preview window which could be scaled. You can literally grab the dialog box and rescale it, resize it to any portion of the image that you would like to edit. Of course, it is recommended that you sharpen your images at 100% of the size that you're going to print. In this case, I would like it as big as the baby's face at 100% scale. That gives me exactly the area I'm trying to improve. Now you'll notice that my amount is going over 300% here. And the reason for that is I want to see exactly what's done, and I want it done overly the top, because I would like it to be able to show me any artifacts, any of those halos. But guess what? There's not much. These new algorithms are so clever. They're so good. Now that I'm happy with the choices that I've made, which is about 2 pixels in this case, I'm going to go back about 120% of the sharpening and accept that modification. Now, of course, knowing that this image is sharpened, everything is sharpened, including those eyes that were already in focus. Well, what I'm going to do in this case is, of course, mask it out. I'm just going to apply this white mask, choose my brush by hitting the B key, and paint with black over the areas I do not want improved in sharpening, which is the parent's eyes and this blanket here, and the mama's eye. Now they're all about the even sharpening. I'm going to merge the 2 layers. And also in this tutorial, I'm going to show you one more clever tool that's been upgraded and refined in Photoshop, and that is image size scale up. As being a photographer and a printer, I know that it's important to have the images nice and sharp when you blow them up to a size that you like. Now let's pretend that we want this image, which is only 2000 pixels wide, printed something like 24 by 36, which is a large portrait. I'm going to punch in those numbers, 24 by 36. You'll see that this image is getting quite distorted. It has a whole lot of artifacts and it's not looking all that pleasant. Now we're going to choose a different algorithm this time, and the algorithm is called Preserve Details. Now this is something new. The best algorithm that was available before was the bicubic smoother one for enlargements, and that worked great until you compare it to this new one. And by the way, this dialog box is also scalable, so you can grab it anywhere you want on the corner or on the side and increase its size so you can see before and after. Like before, you can click on the window to see before and let go to see the after. And this does a pretty good job. And even if you do see some of the artifact, and there's this reduce noise slider that you can pump up a little bit, and that gets rid of them completely. Hit OK, and the magic happens. Your image is upscaled without halos. One more feature that is really clever and takes advantage of all the dynamic range of current cameras is HDR. Now, you might think HDR is one of those overly grungy type of photographs, but not necessarily. HDR stands for high dynamic range, and of course, we all run into those situations where some parts of the photograph are blown out and some of them are underexposed. We do want to even them out sometimes. In this case, it's sort of extreme, where a couple is sitting in a limo and a couple is standing outside. One is in the sun, one is flashed slightly by my strobe. Now what I'm going to do is open it up directly in Photoshop, and before I do that, I have to make sure that I'm opening it with the highest bit depth resolution for maximum dynamic range. And you'll see the reason for that in a second. I'm gonna open that up. There's our cute baby again. Here we go. Now this image is 16-bit as shown over here up top on your tab. We're going to convert this to a smart object because that's how you apply the smart filters and ACR filter specifically inside Photoshop. I'm going to again jump this layer, making a copy of it by hitting Ctrl J, Command J on the Mac, and convert this to a smart object by simply right clicking and hitting Convert to a smart object. There is another alternative. You can go to a filter menu and hit Convert for Smart Filters, which is doing the same thing. It's just going to pop you with another dialog box. Once you have a smart object on your layers, you can apply smart filters to it. Now in this case, we're going to apply the ACR filter to it. When that pops up, you'll notice that it's like editing the image in Camera Raw, but only this time it's applying it as a filter, which means you can always go back to it and adjust it if you have to. So I'm going to bring a lot of highlights back in this case because I want all the image exposure from the outside to be matched. I'm sort of going to ignore the inside for now because I'm trying to target the outside to be normal looking. So I'm going to bring it back more with exposure than the highlight and just get my blacks in a spot. Adjust my color temperature since it's hot outside and hit OK on this one. Not bad. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer and go back to my smart filters. You'll notice that the smart effect or smart filter is already applied to this layer as well. What I'm going to do this time is double click on that, go back to the Camera Raw sliders, and I'm going to pay attention only to the inside of the limo. In this case, I want to make sure that the color temperature of the inside is right. So my skin tones are on the spot. Maybe a little bit more contrast for the inside. And there we go. That's pretty good. Hit OK on that. Let it do its thing. Now all we have to do is mix and match with some masking. I'm going to apply a mask by hitting this mask icon, grab my brush, and paint with black on this. For the sake of time, I'm going to do it rather quickly and roughly, but you get the idea. Now the inside and outside are matched exposures, and that is taking advantage of this high dynamic range for the new cameras and the ACR filter inside Photoshop CC. In the conclusion, I would like to go over what we learned today, which is the new Adobe Creative Cloud version of Photoshop with its new capabilities of Camera Raw 8, creative radial vignetting, which could be applied to any area of the image with any settings of those sliders that we all love. We went over some of the smart sharpening, where we're selectively sharpening the image without creating any halos, thanks to the new algorithms. We used upright filter inside Photoshop camera lens correction, and we cropped our image without distorting it. And last but not least, we went over the HDR, which allowed us to even out the exposure on a highly contrasted image. Thanks for watching.
Just the intro.
Oh, the intro? Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Start
Okay. Favorite. Some of the. Right. Okay. Alrighty.
Okay, count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chopping. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It has to be flawless, right?
Yeah.
I think I can stop the screen recording, right? Because I'm not going over that. Are you recording still?
Mm-hmm.
Let me save that real quick. Okay. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. But that rehearsal helped, huh? Shoot, this dialog box pops up. Okay. So I'm going to go one more time. What is that noise?
It's the air conditioner.
Oh, crap. Okay. That's what it is. Are you recording?
But look at the camera.
It's annoying. All right. I hope this is recording. Okay. How do I make sure this is recording? Do I say hi? Hi. I think this is too loud. I don't know if someone's supposed to be louder or. Hi, how you doing? Can you hear
That's
me?
too loud. That's
It's too loud? How's that? Can you hear me now? Verizon Wireless?
Turn a little.
Okay, good. All right. Hold on. One more time. Okay. Do it. Stuck. Okay. Is that good enough?